surely the magnitude of the attack was something that hit you straight on the face. And the second thing which came across was the fact that they were able to, when I say they, I mean ISI and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, were able to motivate a local youngster from that vicinity to carry out this attack. If Pakistan was not involved, why did they start flying their fighter aircrafts to come and start targeting Indian armed forces position? This is a situation, this is a country with which we must be prepared to carry out repeated punitive action should there be incidents.
India can never forget the scene of the carnage wreaked by a dastardly terror attack in Pulwama on the afternoon of February 14, 2019. Burnt human body parts and mangled steel lay strewn across the Jammu-Srinagar segment of National Highway No. 44 that cuts through the Pulwama district of South Kashmir. In one of the worst terror strikes in the erstwhile state, 40 CRPF personnel travelling in a convoy were slaughtered when a suicide bomber rammed his explosive-laden car into the bus they were in. The Pakistan-based terror outfit Jaish-e-Mohammed immediately claimed responsibility for the strike and released a pre-recorded video of the purported suicide bomber as he announced his motives for the deadly plot. The Fidain attack pushed India and Pakistan to the brink of war, with the air forces of both countries conducting airstrikes on each other's territory for the first time since the 1971 war. We spoke to retired Lieutenant General Subrata Saha, former Deputy Chief of Army Staff and member of National Security Advisory Board, about the attack, Pakistan-sponsored terror activities, India's response, the lessons learned from Pulwama and much more. Take a close listen.
Well, it is not as if this was the first car bomb attack. We've had car bomb attacks in the past. But surely the magnitude of the attack was something that, hit you straight on the face. And the second thing which came across was the fact that they were able to, when I say they, I mean ISI and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, were able to motivate a local youngster from that vicinity to carry out this attack. So these two were certainly very, very significant and not at all to undermine the heavy losses, that was incurred. And of course, your heart went out for the CRPF unit and the families of the people that have made this supreme sacrifice. I don't think that is entirely true. If you're getting an intelligence, for example, of something like this, I mean, it is unthinkable that one agency will not share with the other agency, number one. Number two, in Jammu and Kashmir, commanded that corps, 15 Corps, in 2014 and 15. Let me tell you one thing, the kind of bonding and kind of relationship, the kind of camaraderie that exists between the forces, it's virtually unthinkable. I mean, we have had the Home Secretary then visiting us, and I do recollect his comments was, I came here thinking that there might be issues of coordination, but forget coordination. You people work like one integrated body. So I would not, subscribe to that. That said, I must also, highlight the fact that, it's not easy to get absolutely specific intelligence. Invariably, when an incident happens, if you go trace back to the inputs that came, there will be inputs that would suggest, okay, with hindsight, oh, this could have meant this. So I do not rule out that at all. At the end of the day, between the information and the intelligence, really speaking, ultimately it is how it is being interpreted, how it's being analyzed, and how it is being taken beyond. So yeah, to that extent, yes, I see what you mean. But that said, I would not, like to apportion blame on any one agency or any other agency for a point like this. he only reiterated what was well known. If Pakistan was not involved, why did they start flying their fighter aircrafts to come and start targeting Indian armed forces positions? When India carried out the strike, the strike, for whatever reason, it got publicized as Balakot. The strike was actually on Jabba Top at the terrorist training camp. Okay, not only has this minister admitted to their involvement, they have also admitted to the losses that the terrorists suffered much later. So initially they were all in that standard deniable mode that they get into, mode of denial, and that obviously comes under pressure from Pakistan's army. It comes under the threat of the ISI, and then after some time, when that threat seems to kind of recede, so you start hearing statements coming out to make sure that your own skin is safe and you're passing it on to others. So the fact of the matter is, yeah, he has made the statement. It's only an admission. Hasn't Musharraf admitted to so many things much after he retired and went through the rigors of a political life? So what's new in this? Whether it is adequate or not, you would typically judge it from what was Pakistan's conduct after that. If you look at it, frankly, after the strike on Jabba Top, again I reiterate, it's Jabba Top, the terrorist training camp. After the strike on Jabba Top, there hasn't been mercifully another major terrorist incident till now. So to that extent, I think it was successful. To the question which you had asked prior to this, if a minister is admitting that yes, Pakistan had undertaken this, doesn't it show, some sort of, shall we say, dissension within the Pakistani establishment? It is also on record, on the way on the way the Pakistani establishment had divisions within themselves on how should they be dealing with Wing Commander Abhinandan. So all of this do point to the impact that it has made. The preparations would involve, I think, a much better intelligence, of course, followed by very high quality of surveillance, then better preparedness with people who are moving in convoys or otherwise carrying out such movement in any such operations. And along with that protection, as I said, some blast proofing of the vehicles and all should do a lot of good. And like your previous question, just as well that, we should, it is important to have a good, repository of the knowledge that we have gained from this, so that it is applicable, it is available for training for our forces, whether they are carrying out their basic training or whether they are carrying out specialized training or pre-induction training, so that all the lessons must be available for people to see. And at the same time, I think it is also important, we are hearing so much about this Atmanirbhar Bharat and all that. I think, these are challenges which are coming from the field, challenges that if our academic institutions who are studying related subjects, if our, industries who are associated with such, products, etc., if they were to get more committed, more involved, I think we will see a much, smarter way of handling these situations.